Oh yeah, we back. Decisions must be made. Devin Haney, you know, he's in quite the position. Devin Haney has been ordered by the WBC to fight against his longtime mandatory Sandor Martin of Spain. But here's the kicker. Devin Haney is currently coming off of a loss to Ryan Garcia. He was able to keep his belt with the WBC because Ryan Garcia failed to make weight, weighing in at 3.2 pounds. So kind of based on his professionalism and Ryan Garcia's lack thereof, he was able to keep his title on a technicality. But it doesn't change what the world has already seen regarding that fight. Sidebar, Ryan also tested positive after the fight had already happened, positive for ostarine. So there's a lot of moving parts with that particular situation. We're still currently in an investigation. Ryan is being arrested and vandalizing hotels, getting mental evaluations. I made videos about all that. You guys check that on the channel. So we can't really worry about Ryan Garcia at this moment because his fate, it is largely in question at this point. I think it's safe to say no one really knows the outcome of, are people pressing charges? What's up with this ostarine investigation? So I don't know what's going on with him. Stay tuned for more. But Devin Haney, he has to fight his mandatory. Now, the purse bid will be on the 18th of this month, June 18th, because the teams had up until tomorrow, the 11th, to amicably come to terms with a fight. But it doesn't look like, according to industry insiders, it doesn't look like that has been done. So the purse bid is scheduled for the 18th. Will they get an exception or push it out? Does Devin Haney, Team Haney, want this fight? I don't really know, but Devin is in between a rock and a hard place. Here's why. Because he's still a champion, as I mentioned earlier, based on that technicality. But the world at large seen a lot of flaws and fluke in Devin Haney's defense. It looked leaky versus Ryan Garcia. Now, not that Sandor Martin is the same type of fighter, because he doesn't carry the power that Ryan carries, but he does have sneaky power and he's a good boxer. And if you don't take him seriously, your fight could look like the Teofimo Lopez fight or Mikey Garcia, where Mikey gets retired by Sandor Martin, and I thought Teofimo should have lost to Sandor Martin. So in come Devin Haney. The reason I'm saying he's in between a rock and a hard place is because this is not an exciting fight on paper based on the two styles. It is not a big name in the sport of boxing. So if Devin doesn't fight his mandatory, it's pretty obvious he'll likely be stripped of his title. I want to see you strip. So he really has to fight Sandor Martin to satisfy his obligations with the WBC as champion. The downside is if he takes the fight, I don't think it's a big fight. And I think there's some inherent sneaky danger. Now, it's not going to be as dangerous to me as some of the bigger punchers in the division, because I think that style, coming off of the Ryan Garcia fight, could be all wrong. Like a Gary Antoine Russell or Subriel Matias if he beats Paro. But all in all, I feel like the Sandor Martin is more risk than what it's even worth. But I understand how this game goes, and you have a mandatory to satisfy. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Devin Haney decides. Also, I think it's worth noting, Devin can't make 135 anymore. He's in his second fight. He's ballooning too much up in weight. He had to weigh in naked to make the weight, which he did versus Ryan Garcia. His first fight, he had this extreme 25-pound rehydration, and now the world is calling him a weight bully, things like that. So in my opinion, he's looking at 140 or above, 140 to 147, because 154 seems like too crazy right now, coming off the performance he had versus Garcia. So anything from 140 to 147 seems like open season or fair game for Devin Haney. So to me, Devin is surrounded by killers. He's surrounded by guys who are formidable, especially coming off his last performance. We'll see what he decides to do, but I don't think Sandor Martin, based on how his last fight looked with Ryan Garcia, I don't think that's a gimme fight as easy as some people may think. And again, coming off of that Ryan Garcia performance, and yes, I do have to preface that, it's not a big fight with Sandor Martin. Before the fight, Eddie Hearn even said that Devin will have to take a pay cut to fight Sandor Martin. And this was before he lost to Ryan Garcia, and you had Eddie Hearn who was still saying that. So if he's saying that you need to take a pay cut and he thought you were going to beat Ryan Garcia, as did most of the world, then what does that mean financially for Devin Haney's purse to fight a guy like Sandor Martin? So that, plus the fact of how do you sell that fight? Like, where on earth do you even put a Devin Haney Sandor Martin fight? Which, again, there's a difference, and I want you guys to understand what I'm saying. Please do not misconstrue my words. In boxing, there are fans of the sport and certain fights that appeal to hardcore boxing fans because we watch everything. I'm talking about mass appeal. I'm talking about blockbuster fights. Sandor versus Devin Haney, it does satisfy a mandatory obligation within the WBC. I do understand how this works, but it is not a blockbuster fight. Let's be clear. It is not this sensational blockbuster fight. The marriage of those two styles could provide for a lackluster fight. Plus, you're faced with the fact that Devin Haney, coming off of a fight where he made mistakes and he got dropped a gang of times, you know, that might make Devin Haney take less chances in a fight because he was punished and he was battered very well by Ryan Garcia. And then if Ryan Garcia intentionally, especially, took Osterine and was cheating in that way, then that just makes the beating even worse. So now you have a potentially more gun shy or less confident Devin Haney versus a guy who's stylistically tricky, southpaw, can box like Sandor Martin. It's just not a big, huge fight. So I'll be very interested to see what happens with this purse bid. I am going to be paying attention to this purse bid because I think Devin's next move is critical. Anytime somebody has a fight in the manner that the fight played out, Haney Garcia, you guys could keep saying Osterine and all that type of stuff, but it doesn't change that the fight happened. The commission didn't catch it, so the damage is already done. So I think it's going to be paramount Devin Haney's next fight and how he looks in it. Have we seen the best of Devin Haney? Will he be able to deal with all the psychological baggage from his last fight, you know, which has just been a nightmare? Didn't seem like it make money, didn't beat Tank Davis. You know, you didn't outperform Tank Davis. You didn't make more money than Tank Davis. You didn't have a higher live gate or break his records. Plus, you have the Osterine stuff. You have Ryan miss weight. You have miscalculations on Devin's side especially. Does that come with any lingering effects to Devin Haney's current style? And against a guy like Sandor Martin, although he's not the most dangerous person, I do think that is danger because it becomes more of a high risk, low reward type of fight. But then if Devin doesn't do it, then he'll likely lose his belt. Because what else? What are the other options? You either fight Sandor Martin like the WBC is saying, or you don't. And if you don't, you probably don't have a title. So that also would put Devin in a pickle because his claim to fame at 35 was, I'm undisputed. He moved up, beat Regis Prograis impressively, and picked up the WBC title. And in a normal world, he would have lost that title to Ryan Garcia, at least initially, before we even knew about the PD stuff. And now you're able to, by the skin of your teeth, hold on to that WBC belt. But you have to either put up or shut up and fight Sandor Martin, or not fight him and get removed of your title. So then Devin would just be a non-champion if he doesn't fight this guy. So I'm very curious, because I have no idea exactly what Team Haney is planning here, but this is very, very intriguing, and you should follow this story. You should follow my page, because again, coming off such a rough fight, what you do and decide to do next is going to be very telling in your career, because Devin did take a beating in that Ryan Garcia fight. So I'm curious to see how this will all play out, because, you know, Devin showed a lot of potential, but he potentially flew too close to the sun. The story of Icarus, and them wings was made of wax and feathers. You know what I mean? So I think the reason I say that is because Devin Haney's team, they almost became arrogant and boastful, and they were on a tear, and they kept pushing it and pushing it. And it got to a point where they started to, in my opinion, clout chase Gervonta Davis, who fights this weekend versus Frank Martin. And ultimately, in doing so, that was their undoing. You got to always run your race and stay in your lane. The moment you try to focus on what other people are doing, or you make it so much about trying to compete with other people, that's when you can lose your footing. And I think that's exactly what happened. I think they totally underestimated Ryan Garcia's ability. They totally thought Ryan Garcia was a quitter because Tank made him quit. But that's Tank. Tank made him quit. Devin Haney didn't make him quit. Tank made him quit. Tank has his own style. He fights nothing like Devin Haney. So you can't really be bothered by that. You got to focus on your fight. You know, if a guy doesn't have power like a Tim Bradley, and he's trying to fight Ruslan Provodnikov like he's Triple G, like he's Mike Tyson, you've seen what happened in the fight. He's going to run into problems because he's out here fighting the wrong style of fight. And we've seen this time and time again where emotions play into it. And you got a guy who ends up fighting to the opponent's advantages because they're out here trying to compete or fight off fumes and emotions. And then they end up getting clipped because you're walking straight to the puncher, because you guys had this intense buildup and back and forth trash talk. That is a no-no. And I think Devin Haney's team, despite Bill Haney trying to give Ryan Garcia a psychology for dummies books and all these types of things, I think he fell right into Ryan's trap, into Ryan's hands with all the antics. And then they really wanted to hurt Ryan for all he had done, but Devin ended up getting clipped in the first minute of the fight, and he was hurt. And I don't know if he fully recovered from that moment, which had him at a deficit. So he just tried to get more aggressive on Ryan Garcia, and he ended up getting hurt throughout the fight more and more times, right? So we'll see what Devin and his team decides as far as Sandor Martin. Subscribe for all the boxing, because I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close.